Hey YouTube, this is Chris from Taylor's Reef, and as part of my nano planting series I want to talk about setting up a CO2 system in a nano environment. This is not something I've done before, and I've done plenty of research before committing to which system I'm going to use. There are a plethora of other systems out there, but the one I went for was from CO2 Supermarket. This complete package can cater for tanks from 20 to 100 litres. I'm going to give it a quick review, but I can recommend CO2 Supermarket if you decide to go down this route in future. One of the things you need for plants to grow well is photosynthesis, and this is aided by having CO2. The trouble with the starter systems from Fluval and from Tropica is that they're only on or off. There's no measuring in between. I went for a slightly more advanced system, and I have to say I'm very impressed. First thing you get is a bottle of CO2, 88 grams, with a 5H UNF connector. I believe these bottles are for paintball guns, but I'm not 100% sure. They come with 3 rubber rings which go on the bottom of the tank, and they slot in to a holder like so. You must make sure the bottle is upright at all times. It's the gas you want and not the liquid. Never have it on its side. I think it looks really cool, and it will stand next to the tank quite well. The next thing is controlling the amount of CO2 into your tank. The regulator screws on like so. This is a single stage regulator with a high pressure gauge measured in megapascals. 0.3 megapascals is around about 40-43 psi, which is where the recommended amount of psi for the system that I bought. It's got a very positive high pressure gauge and a needle valve on the side, which is also very high quality. The other thing important about this regulator is it comes with a solenoid. I decided to upgrade this solenoid from a 240 volt to 12 volts. The reason for that is I didn't really want 240 volts sat on top of a pressurised container near a body of water. The other thing is they're quite well known for humming, and it's not something I really wanted to have next to my aquarium. They supply you with a 12 volt 500 milliamp power supply, and all in all I think it's a very high quality regulator. Nothing to judge it against, but the feel of it is very heavy and seems very well made. The next thing that they give you is a bubble counter, including a check valve. A bubble counter with a check valve is very important. What the check valve does is stops any water or any other things getting back into the line and damaging your very expensive regulator. The other thing a bubble counter does is you fill it up with water and measure the amount of bubbles going into the aquarium. This system apparently can handle 1 bubble every 10 seconds, which is about where I'm going to set it up. How do I know how much CO2 is in the system? Well, we use a thing called a drop checker, and you get a 15 milliliter drop checking solution. I've already put the drop checker in the aquarium just to see how much CO2 is already in there, and as you can tell it's currently blue, which means there's no CO2 at all. If the device changes to yellow, that means there's too much CO2, and if I get it to green, that means there's just enough and everything is happy. This is very important as I'm hoping to have shrimps in this tank in the future, and I need to make sure that there's enough CO2 in the system to make sure that it doesn't damage any of the livestock. CO2 is very deadly to invertebrates and also to your fish. Once it's gone through that, it ends up in a bazooka atomizer or a diffuser. This converts your one bubble into lots of tiny bubbles and distributes it into the water. I'm going to put this underneath the filter. The simple reason is it gets sucked in and pushed back out to the water column for the maximum absorption into the water stream. As I say, not something I've done before. I'm quite looking forward to getting it set up and also to monitoring the CO2 levels. So the next part of this video is going to be the setup side where we connect it all together. Okay, I'm going to go through quickly the setup that I've just done for putting the system together. One of the things you do need is some hot boiling water for the tubes. But I've just measured the cable here. So this is the bazooka connection that's going to go in the aquarium. Goes on to the bubble counter just here, and then on to the regulator. So this was quite an easy operation. The tube just goes over a nipple, and then the locking nut goes in place to keep it from popping off. Just need to dip in the hot water just for a couple of seconds just to soften the pipe up. So push fit and do the locking nut. Make sure you put the locking nuts on before you stick it on the pipe. You can't get it on once it's attached without taking it apart. Same for the bazooka. Plastic locking nut. Warm the pipe up, push it down, tighten it up. Now, the one for the regulator, for those of you that have CO2 system, may already have this, or even RO systems. This is a push fit connection. It's just a case of pushing as hard as you can till it locks in place, and then it doesn't come out, and you're good to go. One last thing we need to do is a leak test, but we need to get that in the aquarium. We also need to lock the regulator and the cylinder together, and then just run a bit of soapy water over the various joints. Before we do that, make sure everything is locked closed. Okay, you need to make sure that everything is tight. You don't want any gas escaping when you plug it in. And make sure your needle valve's closed as well. It's got a little locking nut, so you just need to make sure that's locked in as tight as you can. Just lock it in place, and again, making sure your valve is also in the fully closed position. So with that, let's go and get it in the aquarium and get it set up for its final time. Okay guys, so I've got the CO2 system all now set up in the tank. Had a couple of issues with it just to make you aware of. You need to make sure when you put the regulator on that you give it a good fast turn, otherwise you get a lot of gas escaping. It is starting to release the CO2 now. I'll do a quick show round after I finish speaking. But so far I'm really impressed with it. It's working exactly as I expected it to. It's being sucked through the filter and out onto the tank. So what we just need to do now is just let it settle down for a few hours, watch the bubble counter, and just need to make sure there's enough CO2 or too little, too much in the system. So if this starts to turn yellow, I need to turn it down. I've turned it down quite a lot. I'll show you the bubble counter in a minute. I'm trying to do one bubble every 10 seconds just to release a small amount of CO2, let it build up. And then hopefully we'll see some plant growth. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you've learned something. I'll give you an update in a few more days once this is settled in, and hopefully we'll see some great plant growth. So you've been watching Talos Reef TV. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you come back again soon. Cheers guys.